Hi everybody! Since we last spoke, some things have changed, you might notice. For example, what happened? I have unicorn hair and I love it! Why didn't I do this years ago? I know why. Because I'm a complete coward and I was always afraid, like, oh, I'll dye my hair pink and people won't take me seriously. Oh, I'll dye my hair pink and my agent will drop me, or whatever. And it turns out to be a complete lie. It's fine to have pink hair, and I kind of think, I don't know, even at my advanced age, there's something quite incredibly pleasing about it, like fairy tale hair. So I have fairy tale hair. But that's not what I'm here to talk about today. Oh no. Today, I'm going to talk about film and TV things that inspired night school. So programs, series, movies. There actually aren't that many. I'm making it sound really huge and there's like 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. Although I'm going to brainstorm while I'm filming this, and so more may come to me. Anyway, that's what I'm talking about. I have pink hair. I hope you do too. Isn't it nice to be back and alive and breathing? Here we go. Okay, so I did a video, I guess a couple months ago, maybe-ish, about the books that inspired night school. I think there were 3 of them that actually made me want to sit down and write. Like, obviously, everything inspires you. The wind through the trees can be an inspiration. But the books that made me feel sort of brave enough to write my own. But I haven't written about the TV, the movies, the other media that inspired it, because in truth, when I was stuck writing the book, it wasn't books I went to for inspiration. It was, just so you know, my dog is here again, so you'll be hearing his little claws pitter-patting across the floor. So pleasing. Anyway, it wasn't the books I went to when I needed ideas or inspiration. Come here, Buzz. Come. Look. See? Dog. It was the TV series I went to, actually. When I was working on night school and I needed inspiration, I started watching a few box sets. And in fact, often I would watch the box sets and not write, and I would just sit and watch the box sets because it was very pleasing. But the first one that I watched from beginning to end during the years I was writing night schools 1 to 5, the one I went back to all the time, was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And I know there's no vampires in night school. I'm not in it in the end, as you know there were at the beginning. But I nonetheless was inspired by the mood of it. So it's very dark, it's very funny, and so that balance is much harder to get right than you think. The characters are very real, like you feel like you kind of know them, and you want them to be your friends. And that is a skill. It's why often when you read books you don't get that feeling. Buffy, what I drew from it was that balance of light and dark and funny and very dramatic and dangerous, and just the quickness of the pace. Like each episode just flies by, and the action, like when I was writing a fight scene, I would watch an episode of Buffy and watch how they fought, and then I could draw from that, because I've never been in a big fight, any fight ever. I mean, once when I was like 15, one of my friends went completely bonkers and I said something about her boyfriend that wasn't very nice. He was such a loser. She like attacked me like a person, like a fight, and I didn't know how to fight because I don't fight. Like I am a lover, not a fighter. And I was like, Kara, calm down. God, claws. So I didn't know. And I wasn't about to take self-defense classes to learn because I am lazy. So I watched how they did it and it was fascinating. And so from that I could take, you know, just sort of the motions that the fight made sense when you're reading it. Which, by the way, just so you know, is also not very easy to describe a fight and have you be able to see it. So that I had to learn how to do that as well. So Buffy's my number 1. I love Buffy. I relate to Buffy. Allie has some, like Allie's arc from, you know, sort of troubled but normal teen to fighter leader. It's very borrowed from what happens to Buffy in that. And the group, like in Fracture, at the end of Fracture, when they feel so defeated even though they won that fight. And they're just, this is not, like they've had so many fights. Like that, I think, was very inspired by the Scooby Gang in Buffy, and how they grew just weary of it all and just exhausted by it all while still not stopping. Like that, I wanted to play around with that strength and what that takes. So Buffy inspired that side of it, the action side of it, and some of the characters and some of the humor. Another series that really inspired me when I was writing, and this was more a mood series, is a series with Claire Danes from the late 90s called My So-Called Life. And if you haven't seen this, I highly recommend this, if only so you too can swoon over Jordan Catalano and the other characters. And Brain, oh my god, I loved this series so much. It didn't last. It's only like 10 episodes. It was cancelled cruelly by men who don't understand anything. But anyway, it was even an outrage at the time, before Twitter, in the oldie days of yore, when we had to communicate by telephone or email. Everybody was outraged that this marvelous series was cancelled. It was Claire Danes' big thing. She's like 16 in it. She's just a baby. It's amazing. She's so cute. But that I love for dialogue, true dialogue that really was interested in how teenagers actually talk to each other, how they actually communicate to each other. And in fact, it took a lot of criticism for that, but I loved it. I love the broken conversations and the things that upset. There's a whole episode about the way Jordan Catalano leans against a wall. And that is so real to how I remember thinking about boys when I was a teenager. The thing that I would like about them could be as simple as, in night school, it's the way Carter walks. Ali always notices the way Carter walks. And it's a subconscious observation of your own, like attraction. What it is that attracts you to somebody isn't always the things you think it is. So, and I wanted to play around with that, crushes and the interaction of high school students. And just generally, that one it's so good for it. The characters are absolutely delightful. She has a crazy best friend. Claire Danes in this series has a crazy best friend. I mean, delightful, crazy. We all love her. I love her. She's fantastic. And I wrote a crazy best friend, as you know, into the first couple of books of night school, but I didn't write it because of my so-called life. I wrote it because I had a crazy best friend when I was in high school. I think maybe we all kind of do. The wild one who gets into all the trouble, who you're always trying to rescue, and who kind of messes things up while also being absolutely delightful, so you don't give up on them. Like, that is real. And so it reflected what I remembered from my own teenage years. So that I wanted to borrow from, that reality. And when I needed dialogue, when I was feeling uninspired about writing dialogue, I would just turn on my So-Called Life and watch that for an hour or two, and then go like, okay, now I feel steeped again in the ways of dialogue, and I can go back to writing it myself and inventing my own. So those two were very, very influential. Okay, going to films that I found useful, inspiring, that I love, that tie into this. I am, as you know, of an earlier generation, and my references tend to be John Hughes movies, and the most famous of these is The Breakfast Club, which I watched more than once while I was writing Night School. And again, I'm watching it, and if you haven't seen it, please do, for Molly Ringwald's amazing hair, for sushi at lunch, for cereal breakfast, for, ham thrown on statues. This is a very important movie that I think everybody should see. And for social stereotypes in high school and how teenagers rebel against them. The brain, the athlete, the princess, that sort of thing. It's a delightful film about self-aware teenagers, and I adore it. And so I don't have too much of that in my books, but for its rebellious spirit, sort of marvelous coming together of different people, finding a way to unite, like that, I love it. It's Shakespearean. I'm sorry, it just is. It's like modern, like, social drama in its own way. I literally cried watching it when I was 17 and the first time I ever saw it, like, just because I thought, that's me, that's my life. I am not who people think I am. I am not this bookish girl only. I'm more interesting than that. I'm more complicated than that. And that is what it offers. It offers this, like, just a moment of somebody saying, I see you, I get you, I understand you. And that's what I wanted my books to do. I wanted my books to reflect that. I understand you, I get you. Us too. That. We are all that part of that. So that I go to on occasion, just not only to go, oh, it was such a good movie, but also because it just reminds me, when I'm writing an adult, that is a thing that we need to be reminded, and just to be told, if you haven't ever been told it before. You are not just one thing. You are complicated, and you have a right to be complicated and multifaceted. And why shouldn't you be just because you're young? We're allowed to be multifaceted when we're older. Be the princess bookish one. Be the princess geek athlete. Whatever. Like, that's the beauty of it. So, okay. So then, Breakfast Club. just jumping in here to say, tying in, because also John Hughes, but less so, Pretty in Pink, his other movie that I think is just lovely, because it's class war, so it's about a working class girl going to quite a privileged high school, which I literally did. So I was Molly Ringwald in this. I was literally living next to a very posh neighborhood. Everybody in my school was rich. We were not. I'm not traumatized by this at all. In fact, I benefited from it tremendously. There is a lot. I got a really good education out of it, but I wanted, Allie has a bit of that right at the beginning, or she thinks she does, and Carter does as well. They both come from different backgrounds from everybody else in the school, and they have to figure out how they fit in that world. So Pretty in Pink, also marvelous for Annie Potts and Ducky, and amazing hair and beauty, and Jack is tugging his hair.
Pretty in Pink.
Oh, Pretty in Pink. Oh God, Jack. Anyway. So yes, that one sometimes as well. Just another film that really got teenagers from different backgrounds and really spent time getting at the depth of them and dealing with these little things you don't think about. Who thinks about class war among teenagers? Who thinks about like classism when it's worse when you're a teenager than when you're an adult? It's so much worse. People are meaner. There's fewer barriers. People dare to be awful when you're a teenager in a way that they won't as openly when they're older. So actually it's more important to address these issues for younger people, I think, even so that you can find out how you're going to handle it and set yourself up to be, if you're me, a bit grouchy about it for the rest of your life. So anyway, Pretty in Pink. Okay, so 2 just to add at the end, because those are the main ones. The ones I've mentioned are my main influences, I suppose. But 2 that merit some mention. There was a short series called Freaks and Geeks, which again, high school American, addressed different kinds of, like the geeky kids, the nerdy kids, and their own complexities and humor and how they felt about being freaks and geeks, basically. I highly recommend it. It's delightful. It's not one of my big influences. It's very different from what I do, but just in terms of teenagers and trying to get into the culture more and spend more time basically with young people, it's a good one. And the actors are great. And the situation is a little more exaggerated than I like, but it's still charming. And I do find it quite charming, and I did enjoy it. And the other one, which again is sort of away from what I'm writing, but which I love for pace and for energy and for charm, is The Gilmore Girls, which I adored and which I was watching. It was still running, I think, when I first started writing or first started thinking about writing. And so I sort of watched it repeatedly, like the whole series, more than once while I was working on it, both as escape, just because it's so delightful and it's so fast, and also because it is also about a teenager. And so I could then, even though I don't think it captured teens as truthfully as other series, I don't think it tried to. It put adult words in teenagers' mouths, but at the same time, it was nonetheless pleasing and funny and charming. And I always want to capture some of that, because I want your time spent in my books to be rewarding on multiple levels. I am trying to make it dark but hopeful, funny but serious, painful but also pleasant, and that yin and yang is always a bit tricky, and so I'm always working to make sure that I have all of that in there. And so going to these places where I can watch all this stuff, read all this stuff, and just absorb the best of it, that's my thing. That's what I do. So yeah, there you have it. Influence City. So that's it. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to me chat about some of my favorite TV shows, about young people, and I would love to know your favorites. And you're all gonna say the OA. You just are. But I have seen it, and I think you have to be in touch with the OA in order to really appreciate the OA. But what else? What else are you all watching? What would really connects you? And about young people, what do you think captures people in their early 20s and their late teens? What captures that time for you? I would love to know, because if I haven't seen it, I want to see it. And if I haven't read it, I want to read it. So hit me with your ideas in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't. I've got more videos coming. Dye your hair pink and send me a picture. Don't tell your mom it was my idea. Let's chat. Take care. Keep breathing. Hang in there. See you soon.